Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. One of the more high profile recruitments that we've seen in the 2025 class, kind of set to wind down as National Signing Day approaches. It's five-star quarterback Julian Lewis, currently committed to USC. There's been rumors and whispers that he might be playing his college football elsewhere. We haven't really talked a ton about this because I think my stance on it all summer long was we'll talk about it when we have news to talk about. But I do think there's an element of, Lincoln Riley kind of has to decide what he wants to do. Because if Julian Lewis ends up playing his football at Colorado or at Indiana, you probably want to make sure that you're getting a quarterback in the 2025 class. Now, I think there's a couple of different opinions in terms of how Lincoln Riley should go about it. I'll give you guys my take, but I think more importantly, would love to hear all the USC fans in the comment section. I've opened up Twitter. I've read some of the message boards. A lot of USC fans kind of have a lot of different opinions on this situation. Would love to hear from you all in the comment section. Of course, if you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. It's going to be a busy next couple of weeks for USC on the recruiting trail, in the transfer portal. All the support means the world. So appreciate you guys rocking with it. Without further ado, let's get into it. Now, I want to start with, if I'm Lincoln Riley and I'm thinking about the future of the quarterback position, really the future of this USC program, what am I doing? I'm going after Husan Longstreet. And we're going to talk about the difference between Julian Lewis and between Husan Longstreet. Let's be quite frank about it. Two really good quarterbacks. They kind of excel at different things. We'll kind of break down the prospects in just a little bit. Why I'm going after Husan Longstreet, I think most importantly, you don't want to be holding an empty bag when National Signing Day comes time. You know what I mean? If you kind of like think you have Julian Lewis committed in, he's going to sign with USC, and then he doesn't, goes to Colorado or Indiana, you don't want to have just no backup plan. And so if I'm Lincoln Riley and USC, and we've heard the whispers that Lincoln Riley is keeping Husan Longstreet warm, kind of kicking the tires around Husan Longstreet. I'm not just keeping him warm. I'm fully going after and recruiting Husan Longstreet to come play quarterback at USC. That's what I'm doing. Now, you look at the chances of USC getting this flip done. I think he's pretty committed to Texas A&M, but Lincoln Riley's got that pocket ace where when Lincoln Riley recruits you at the quarterback position, you're going to listen. Like the track record for his development at the quarterback position, it is awfully difficult to pass up. And so the question is, do we think USC and Lincoln Riley can get it done with Husan Longstreet? There's a couple of reasons that you feel good about it. And I think most notably it's Lincoln Riley. You know what I mean? Even though it's late in the process, if you were a quarterback and you're trying to pick what school you want to go to, you're thinking about, where can I go get playing time? Where can I go get developed into being a first round NFL draft pick? If you look at USC and say you have Jaden in there, Miller Moss is probably going to transfer out. One, you're going to have an opportunity to play early with USC. But I think most importantly, you're going to be working with what I think is unquestionably the best developer of quarterbacks that we see in the country. And so can Lincoln Riley and USC get it done? Yeah, I think they absolutely can. And quite frankly, I think they should be. If Julian Lewis, and look, this is no ill will to Julian Lewis. I think he'll be a successful quarterback wherever he winds up. I'm going to be rooting for him. But at the end of the day, you can't continue this game. Like if Julian Lewis is not being committed to the program, then you're not committed to Julian Lewis. You have to go explore your other options. And I think luckily for US, you got a quarterback right down the road in California that is arguably a better fit for USC and Husan Longstreet. Now, I think that's a nice segue in terms of getting into the differences that Julian Lewis and Husan Longstreet have as quarterbacks. I think where you want to start, and this would make some USC fans feel good about Husan Longstreet. A lot of USC fans have been very vocal that Miller Moss hasn't been a very good fit within the USC offense, right? Not a big arm, not a great athlete outside the pocket, kind of limited in terms of the things you can ask Miller Moss to do. I would argue that Julian Lewis is closer to Miller Moss in terms of the quarterback prospect. Now, don't get me wrong, Julian Lewis, talented quarterback that has put up some phenomenal numbers at the high school ranks. You can't really dispute. Been playing 7A ball down in Georgia, 7,200 passing yards, 96 touchdowns to only 14 interceptions going into his senior year. Like, those are some very impressive numbers. Julian Lewis has shown he can do it at a high level. There's no question about that. But at the other side of it, he's under 6'1". He's a buck 85. The arm talent it's quality. I think he can make a lot of throws, but it's not elite. Then you look at Husan Longstreet right down there in Centennial in California, 6'2", 200 pounds, phenomenal athlete. If you get a look at Husan Longstreet, like, this kid is a very, I would say, twitchy athlete, can make people miss. He is built. Like, there's just a lot of muscle on his frame, and he's got a really big arm. You talk about the differences between Julian Lewis. Julian Lewis is a little bit more proven as a football player. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to argue with the production and the wins that Julian Lewis has under his belt playing down there in Georgia, but he's not as physically gifted as Husan Longstreet, who is 6'2", 200 pounds, looks almost like a running back, throws off platform phenomenally well. If Husan Longstreet ends up flipping to USC, it's going to be a blast to get into the film of Husan Longstreet. And so at the end of the day, if I'm Lincoln Riley, I'm saying, hey, if Julian Lewis is seemingly inching towards not signing with USC and going to play somewhere else, if I'm Lincoln Riley, I'm getting ahead of it and saying, no longer am I just keeping Husan Longstreet warm. I'm fully recruiting Husan Longstreet to be a USC Trojan. That's kind of where I'm at it with the Julian Lewis saga that USC has gone for the last couple of months. Now, there's kind of three scenarios that USC has. One is Julian Lewis stays locked in with USC, signs with USC, and you have Julian Lewis to start 2025, which I think a lot of USC fans would be just fine with. You know, like, Julian Lewis we all know what he can do. We all know that Lincoln Riley really likes him. There's a reason he recruited him so early on in the process. That would be fine. I think option two is Julian Lewis ends up playing at Colorado or Indiana, and USC turns it up on Husan Longstreet and lands Husan Longstreet. I think this would also be a really good option for USC. I mean, Husan Longstreet, again, is, a little bit less proven. Doesn't have the prolific numbers that Julian Lewis has down there in Georgia, but he's more talented. I think he's got a higher ceiling as a quarterback. And like many of you guys said and been critical about Miller Moss, is Husan Longstreet kind of fits the MO of quarterbacks that have been really successful under Lincoln Riley. And I think the third option is Julian Lewis flips to Colorado or Indiana, wherever he's going to play his ball. Husan Longstreet stays with Texas A&M, and USC is holding an empty bag in 2025's class, which again is okay. And I've always kind of taken the approach that I kind of trust Lincoln Riley to figure it out at the quarterback position. What you need to do there is go get a quarterback in the transfer portal, but more importantly, a young quarterback, right? You're going to have Jaden in 2025. I think we'd expect him to be the starter, kind of pending the next couple of games that we see him play. You're probably going out and looking for not only you kind of get to pick your litter in the transfer portal if you're USC at the quarterback position, just like Lincoln Riley always does. You probably want a younger quarterback. And I think there are a couple names that kind of come into mind. One, DJ Lagway. Obviously, the Florida program is kind of up in the air. And Florida said Billy Napier might be back, which might have DJ Lagway stay at Florida. But I guarantee you that DJ Lag will be mauling his options at the end of the season. So I think DJ Lagway is a kind of name to monitor. Jackson Arnold at Oklahoma, I think, would certainly be a name that I think would fit what USC wants to do. And I look at Jackson Arnold and say, I get it has looked really ugly for him at Oklahoma. That's an SEC program that has brutal offensive line play. I don't think Jackson Arnold stands a chance, not to mention that their top four wide receivers haven't been healthy the last couple of weeks. Jackson Arnold, I think, is a good quarterback that has in a really, really bad situation. And we all know when you don't have good offensive line play, and USC's kind of experienced this too in the Big Ten, when you don't have good offensive line play, it's hard for quarterbacks to look really good. I'm not selling my stock on Jackson Arnold. I think he could be really successful at USC. I think the other name to maybe monitor is Ohio State's going to be losing some quarterbacks. And I think it'd probably be Aaron Noland, who is a freshman right now for Ohio State. If he is the transfer portal, I think that would be a really good fit. At the end of the day, if USC doesn't land Julian Lewis, doesn't land Husan Longstreet, Lincoln Riley's going to go into the transfer portal, and you kind of know that he's going to command a lot of attention. Like, quarterbacks will pick up the phone every time they see Lincoln Riley calling, because that is an offense, that is a coach that you want to play for. So I don't think it's the end of the world if USC doesn't land a quarterback in 2025, I think it's certainly ideal to have either Longstreet or Julian Lewis signing with USC. But if they don't, we expect them to be big time players with whatever top quarterbacks are in the transfer portal. And I would fully expect Lincoln Riley to land one of them. And I think that conversation we'll probably have in the beginning of December when we get our news on what the quarterback room looks like. And then when we see what quarterbacks hit the transfer portal. That's kind of my approach. I would be fully recruiting Husan Longstreet to be a USC Trojan at this point. Would love to hear from you guys in the comments section. I think there's a lot of different takes. There's one take that, hey, Lincoln Riley has loved Julian Lewis ever since he started to recruit him. They still want him at USC, which I totally get. And then you're just kind of playing defense and trying to get Julian Lewis to stay signed or stay committed and sign with USC. That is certainly an argument, but I think at the end of the day, you don't want to be caught with your pants down come signing day with no quarterback committed. And so I think if Julian Lewis is going to continue to look around at Colorado, I think Lincoln Riley and USC should be going after Husan Longstreet. That's my take. Would love to hear from you guys in the comments section. Appreciate y'all rocking with it. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later.